In this video, we're going to create a blood splatter decal. Let's go ahead and open that image up, and we're going to use a color range technique to extract this splatter detail from it. First, I'm going to use a marquee selection and crop this texture just to the main splatter itself. We have this top border that I want to get rid of. Let's move it down just a little bit, and with the selection, you make a selection around what you want to keep, go to image and crop, and Control D to deselect. One more thing, I'm going to come up and just use the clone tool and remove this area of the splatter where it's getting cut off. The way color range technique works is it's going to sample this color, and I just don't want the blood splatter to end right there, so I'm going to just remove that detail. Press S on the keyboard to enable the clone tool. I'm going to press Alt, sample the color right there, and remove that little section right there and right there. Now let's go ahead and use the color range, but before we do that, let's go ahead and double click on the layer to make that layer into a regular layer. Next, let's go up to select color range and left click to sample the splatter and use the fuzziness to control how much of splatter you want. I'm going to increase the fuzziness to a fairly large value than what we used before, to about 85, and click OK. Now let's go ahead and create a layer mask from the selection. Come down into the layers on the bottom and click Add Layer Mask. This isolates our selection, and now let's create our alpha channel. I'm going to press Control, left click on the layer mask. This creates our selection from the layer mask. Jump over to Channels, create a new alpha channel, and fill it with white. Currently it's our background color. Control backspace, Control D to deselect, and here's our opacity mask. Let's switch back to RGB, jump over back to layers, and let's resize this. I'm going to use the crop tool. I'm going to resize this to 512 by 512. The final texture could be probably a lot smaller, but I like to work twice the size of the final texture. So if we're using 512 by 512, I'll probably would resize this texture decal to 256 by 256 in the final project. Now left click and let's resize the crop tool to include this entire texture. So it's going to be outside the boundaries of the image right now. So I'm going to center this, and we will keep this texture as square and press enter to resize. Let's zoom in, and before we continue, let's save this PSD file. Let's go to File, Save As, and inside the PSD folder I'm going to save this as blood decal PSD. Save. Let's adjust the color of our decal to red. For this, I'm going to use an adjustment layer. Come down here on the bottom and left click to add a new adjustment layer. Then select Hue and Saturation. You'll see a new layer above the texture layer, and we want to enable colorize. Change the hue to more red. Bump up the saturation. It's hard to tell right now, so let's go ahead and add a new layer and place it on the very bottom and fill it with white. Let's come back to hue and saturation, and let's continue adjusting. Let's bump up the lightness a bit, and let's turn down the saturation to more deeper red, right about there. Now let's fill the layer on the very bottom with the same color as our blood splatter. Use the color picker, left click to sample the color, click OK, and with the bottom layer selected, press Alt backspace to fill it with the foreground color. So now we have our base color and we have our opacity mask. Now let's go ahead and save this as a TGA. File, Save As. Let's go outside this folder into Textures, Targa, and we're going to save this as Decal Blood. Save, and we want to use 32-bit for opacity alpha channel, and click OK. Let's go ahead and import our texture. Let's select Texture folder, click Import, and let's go to Decal Blood. Now let's create a new material decal. Right click, select material, and then name it MAT_decal blood. Let's double click to open the material editor. Select our texture, blood decal. Jump back to material editor, hold T, left click to place the texture sample. Now before we connect it, select the material expression, come down to material domain, change it to deferred decal. And decal blend mode, change this to debuffer, translucent color, and roughness. Now take your RGB into base color. Then take the alpha channel into opacity. And then for roughness, we could create a roughness texture just like we did for the sewer grate. But to keep things simple, I'm going to use one vector by holding down the one key, left click, and just plug it into roughness. 0 is at full intensity, 1 is going to be off. So we're going to keep it at 0, and then let's take a look at what it looks like inside the level. Hit apply. Now let's insert this decal into the map. Let's quickly position the projection of the decal, rotate it and scale it to fit the wall. Let's get a little closer and take a look at what it looks like. I think it's a little too shiny, so let's turn down the roughness. And let's use the roughness at the value of 0.15. Click apply, let's take a look. And that looks better. Let's take a look from far away and from all different angles. And let's do one last tweak in the material editor for adjusting opacity. Let's jump back to material editor, insert one vector and a multiply. And we're going to run the alpha channel into multiply A, one vector into B, and then multiply into opacity. This will give us control of how thick the alpha opacity channel is going to be. So 0 is going to be turned off. Value of 1 is default, so let's go ahead and do 0.5. This is going to make the blood opacity very faint. It's very subtle. And if we turn this up to a high value than 1, let's go ahead and bump it up to 2. It's going to make our blood splatter very thick. And for the last part of this video, let me show you two more properties that we haven't covered yet. So I'm going to take this blood decal. Let's find it. It's right here on the wall. I'm going to drag it out a little bit. I'm going to duplicate it to copy over right onto this decal poster. And I'm going to show you a setting called sort order. And this allows you to make certain decals render on top of another decal. So if we have this blood splatter and I want it to appear on top of this poster and not behind it, we'll have to set a sort order to the blood decal. So let me open up new detail panel. And by selecting the decal that I want to be on top of another, I'm going to set the sort order to the blood decal to 1. And the poster decal is going to be set to 0. This allows the blood decal to be rendered on top of another decal, this poster. Now it's recommended that you don't do a lot of sort order decals. So stick to 2, maybe 3, and try to avoid having too many sort orders. And the last property is fade screen size. This will allow at a certain distance from the camera or from the player's point of view to stop rendering that decal. So this decal will fade over a specific distance. So if we go back right now, we can still see that decal. And if I set the screen size to a different value, let's say 0.03, let's move back. You can still see it. 0.5. And as I get closer, it will begin to appear and will begin to fade over time. So we may need to tweak this value depending on which distance you want that decal to fade out. Actually, let's do this to the blood decal. I'm going to set it to 0.05. Let's move back. And it begins to fade out. And that decal is no longer being rendered. So this is very helpful to turn off certain decals at a specific distance when you want them to stop rendering, especially when the player will never see them at that distance. In the next video, we're going to cover our last decal creation, and that's going to be a text and number decal.